I think Representative Colonel David Smith is going to give us a good bit of information. He's our District 28 representative, 30 years of service. At this point, I'd like to welcome Representative Colonel David Smith. David, thank you.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about me, and as was mentioned, I spent my career in the United States Marine Corps, 30 years, retired as a colonel, combat veteran, 6 deployments overseas, all my combat times, flying in Iraq, got into the business of the Marine Corps. You ever wonder who buys stuff for this military services? And it's people like me that have undergraduate, graduate degrees in business and have managed some large businesses and other things. But so now I'm serving in the Florida legislature. So the second palm card that's being passed around is we wrapped up our legislative session back in March or May. We go, the Florida legislature only meets for 60 days a year. And we have committee weeks as we prepare for that legislative session, and then we go 60 days flat out. It's like taking final exams, and the pace is on. This coming up in 2020, we actually move our legislative session up to January. So we start our committee weeks and the hearings next month. So in three weeks, I'll be back up in Tallahassee representing the people of Seminole County for issues that come up before the Florida legislature. So the little palm card tells a little bit about what we accomplished in the 2019 session that ended not long ago. And it was very productive, much more so than other years for a couple of reasons, but mostly we have a new governor, we had a new Senate president, a new Speaker of the House, and they all got along. And before they wouldn't sit in the same room together apparently, but that was before my time. So I'm up there now representing the people of House District 28. You'll hear me refer to House District 28, Seminole County, Central Florida, and I'll use those terms interchangeably because we have so many regional issues. Water quality, education, job opportunity, transportation, traffic. So you really can't look at any one specific issue and only think about your little area. We really are a system of systems in and around Central Florida. And I've been active in the community since I retired from the Marine Corps 7 years ago, mostly in nonprofits. I work in the simulation and training industry next to UCF. Many people don't realize simulation and training is the second largest economic driver in Central Florida after tourism. And people have no idea. Yeah, it's billions of dollars employing thousands of people right here in Central Florida, and most people have no idea that it's there. But so that's what, I won't say it's my day job, because thankfully I have a pension of a Marine Colonel that allows me to spend the time to make the legislature my full-time job. I'm just continuing my life of service in the legislature, because believe me, you don't do it for the money. It's not a lot, but I'm happy to be serving, and I sit on. Each rep has, if you don't know, there's 40 senators and there's 120 House members. We're all divvied up, and I sit on 5 different committees that run the gamut of public integrity and ethics, business and professions, K through 12 education, quality committee. I'm on healthcare committee for children, family, and elders, dealing with nursing homes, elder abuse, a whole host of other things. And I tell you, you really are almost a jack of all trades. As a freshman member, they spread you around on all these different committees so you can kind of see what you like, where you want to make an impact, and then knock on wood, I get reelected in November of next year. Then, and when you become a sophomore, so to speak, then they'll want you to focus. Am I going to work on healthcare? Am I going to work on banking, insurance? Is it some other issue that you're passionate about? So right now, I'm all over all these different committees and learning the process, because I've never held elective office before. Many of my fellow legislators have at the municipal or county level, and it's a blessing and a curse. You don't know necessarily all the process of how a bill becomes a law, because it's not like that little commercial cartoon, you know, it really works differently. But again, I'll tell you, everything you think you know about campaigns and or the legislature by what you learned on TV and the movies, it doesn't work that way. I'm a lifelong Republican. I'm proud to have shaken the hand of Ronald Reagan and put me on a path when I was a freshman in college as a conservative. But the TVs, it doesn't work that way. The Republican Party has never told me how to vote. You got to vote this way. You see that, like there's some pressure. Just doesn't work that way. Or I'll vote for your bill if you vote for mine. That just doesn't happen. I know one of the things we want to talk about, and tell you somebody, I could talk all night. You know, don't give a Marine, a microphone. You know, I'll talk till you throw me out. But it's really about lobbying. And I'll tell you, the term lobbyist is it still has a bad connotation. But really, lobbyists are nothing more than paid advocates. The church has a lobbyist. The Boys and Girls Club have a lobbyist. Schools, UCF has a lobbyist. They got a bunch of lobbyists. They need them based on all the things you've read in the newspapers. But if you have an issue before the legislature, if you want to see a bill run and passed to change a law, you typically hire somebody to advocate on your behalf, because you don't want to spend 60 days up in Tallahassee straight, because it's full court press when you're up during the legislative session. And I want to talk a little bit about that. If you do want to impact policy, it doesn't work the way you think it does. If you had the best idea to help Floridians, and it wouldn't cost anybody a nickel, because this is the right thing to do to Florida, if it would go up to the legislature and sit if you didn't have an advocate to pound the table for you. Now, I'm not saying you got to pay for that, because it might be a member that's your advocate. But sometimes you may need to hire somebody to help you, unless you want to go camp out for 60 days to the legislature. And I mean, you got to be nonstop. And I'll tell you, when as a House member, you get 6 bill slots. So I can only propose 6 policy changes. Now, if I want to repeal a law, I get as many of those as I want. Or if I'm going to make an appropriations request. I was very successful in the last session getting the city of Sanford a sewer system upgrade. Got the city of Oviedo a stormwater runoff regional stormwater runoff pond that'll help with water quality and runoff into Lake Jessup. Water quality and water issues are very important to me. I ran on 3 major campaign issues, the 3 E's: strengthen our local economy, improve education, and preserve and protect our environment. And I thought that was pretty simple, that something I could keep straight in my head, and they're things that I was passionate about. But so you can do an appropriations bill. I just filed one yesterday on behalf of Seminole State. So these are the different, and there's other types of bills, but I only get 6 bill slots. Now, Senator Simmons, who represents this area, and every one of the other senators, they have unlimited. So just because somebody says, oh, I'm going to file that bill for you, well, filing it is one thing, working it is another. Short example, I passed a bill in the House, filed and passed a bill in the House that would have helped every single Floridian that has property and casualty insurance. Passed it through 3 subcommittees in the House, and off the House floor, not a single no vote. 100% bipartisan Democrat, Republican support, and the bill died in the Senate because it didn't get worked. So that's going to be one of my 6 bill slots next time, because it's the right thing to do. But to tell you, the advocating for a bill, let's talk about that. And I know we got some experts in the audience, and I see Kathy Gibson back there, who's been going up to Tallahassee and going up to Washington for quite a long time, and there's others in the room too. But when a member files a bill for you, it goes through some very smart people in bill drafting. And they make sure it's constitutional, they get the language right. What section of the law is it going to affect? Is it going to cost the taxpayers any money? Because if there's $1 attached to it, you've got to go through an appropriation committee. That'll be one of when you file that bill, gets through bill drafting, you push send and it gets filed. Then the Speaker of the House, who's my boss, and he decides what committees it's going to go to. And let me just break there real quick. Our Speaker of the House is a gentleman named Jose Oliva from Miami Lakes down in South Florida. If there's any cigar smokers in the room, and Oliva Cigars is his business, the #1 ranked cigar in the United States. But I tell you, I spent 30 years in the Marine Corps. I know good leadership when I see it. And we have great leadership in Jose Oliva. I'm honored to be working for him and with him in the legislature. But he decides on, okay, this bill, it's going to go before this Commerce Committee, this Appropriations Committee. Oh, it's a legal thing, it's going to go through a Judiciary Committee. And you have to go, that bill's got to get worked through those committees. So first thing you do, you got to talk to the committee chairman. Chairmen of committees are the captain of the ship. What they say goes, and there is no appeal. So if you go to your committee chairman, you sit down and you have to pitch the bill to them. This is what the property and casualty insurance, it does this, it does that, and they'll grill you on it. And then once they understand it, they'll say, okay, then there's a letter that you ask them to hear it before their committee. And once they're comfortable, because if the committee chairman doesn't want to hear it, your bill's not getting heard. You just wasted one of your bill slots. So it's really good to kind of test the waters beforehand, make sure nobody has any problems. So if they put your bill on the committee hearing, then you stand up, they'll call you, and you present the bill. You've got a couple of minutes, they'll ask you questions. People will get up, public testimony, if somebody wants to speak for it, speak against it, and that's very powerful. And then they vote. And if you get a positive outcome of that vote, and I tell you, here's one of the tricks. Sometimes the committee chairman, they vote first, and then everybody sees how the chairman's going to vote. Because typically, it's if the chairman doesn't hear the bill, if they do hear the bill, they're probably going to vote for it. And then people will see that. But you have to work that through the committee. And then once it passes that committee, then you have to ask the next committee chairman to hear your bill. And then the next committee chairman, and it continues to track. And along the way, people try to kill your bill. When you think about it, there was 25, if you take out the policy bills, and you take out some of the other bills, there's about 2,500 bills that got filed by members. Only 197 ever made it to Governor DeSantis' desk, but 2 of them were mine. So I was pretty pleased. For a freshman to get 2 bills signed by the governor, 5 of my appropriation bills were funded in the state budget. Well, and then the governor vetoed one of them. But that happens too. But so I got 4 out of 5 of my approach requests in there. But that's really the process. But along the way, you have to be able to very simply explain why it's a good bill. And then back to the lobbyists. You have to be able to say who's for it, and they'll tell you, the good lobbyists will tell you who's against it. We tried to expand the scope of practice for nurses and allow nurses to do more, to take, it was going to create greater competition, it was going to take the burden off of doctors. And well, guess who was against expanding the scope of practice of nurses? Doctors. So it went through, passed the House, and failed in the Senate. So there's always an issue. You can say, hey, this is what the bill does. This is why we're doing it. Why it's a good bill. Here's who's going to be against it, and you see where the outcomes. Most of the votes are. I tell you, I don't think I've ever seen a vote down party lines. There's quite a bit of bipartisan support in the legislature. Matter of fact, the vast majority of the votes we take are sometimes unanimous. So Tallahassee is not Washington, D.C. Republicans and Democrats, we eat breakfast every day together. We eat lunch every day. We socialize after hours when we have after hours. And mostly we get along. And then there's some people that you just can't get along with. You know, and they're just crazy, nuts. But even people, Adam Hattersley's a Navy veteran, good guy. I like him. We're polar opposites politically, but we hang out in each other's office and shoot the breeze, and we can get along. It's not Washington D.C., and most people don't know that about Tallahassee. And there's some that, you know, you walk away, you know, that people out protesting with bullhorns and that kind of stuff, that's not productive. Nobody benefits, because those people, they'll never pass a bill. They'll never get a bill out of committee. And that's unfortunate, because they do a disservice to the people they're supposed to represent. So I tell you, I'm up there advocating and representing the people of my district, not the people who gave me money, not the people who voted for me, but everybody who lives in my district. I have that obligation. I am a state representative, but then I have my convictions that I won't go against, even if you disagree with me. And I'll take a meeting with almost anybody. The only people that my legislative assistant knows that don't schedule them is people in the abortion industry. I'm wasting their time, they're wasting mine, and I won't have it. But can I answer any questions? Okay, well, thank you. And Ashley, I also, while we're, I tell you, I have some of these petition signature forms if you're inclined to with the other information. We have to, when I have to get my name put on the ballot. So we collect petition signatures, or I got to pay the state $9,000. And I don't know about you, but I don't like paying the state any more money than I have to. But if you're inclined to want to be able to help me, you're not voting for me. You're just getting my name on the ballot so that people have a choice. But I would ask you to print legibly, because the supervisor elections can't read it. It doesn't count. But we'll float a couple of the clipboards around if I could.
Do you have to be in your district to sign that?
Yes, you do. So if you're a registered voter in Seminole County, that would be helpful to me, because I have the bulk of Seminole County.
And
So,
we have another hour. The other speaker couldn't make it.
okay. Well, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And or is Gabe there? Or, he's probably got. Question.
About 10 minutes of question.
Absolutely, and I'll be happy to hang around later. I mean, this is my full-time job, and I tell you, if you don't enjoy doing this, you're going to get frustrated really quick. So I'm happy to spend as much time as I need. I'll answer when you say, how do you advocate for a bill? Because, you know, I get emails every day. I mean, the boilerplate, they're the exact same. When you sign up for some club or group they plug your information into the exact same email. And I'll tell you, I read the first one and I delete every other one that comes in. If you want, that's not the way to affect change with your legislators, because it's just boilerplate. They're all the exact same. It would be more effective to influence legislation if you got a face-to-face meeting and you said, I'm here and I'm representing the 300 people who have signed this petition from my church, my club, my whatever. And hey, these are 300 people in your district that care about this issue. So I'll tell you, you know what every first term representative wants? Second term. And that comes down to votes and money. And when you can say, hey, I have a control over this many votes, I have this many people that could be potentially donors to you. Now, I'm not saying that they wouldn't help you if you know, or wouldn't. That's not the deciding factor. But I'll tell you, it's a flat-out influencer on those decisions. But you are not going to change the conservative nature of the House of Representatives. We have an we do not have a super majority in the House, but we're close. And if we dig in and work hard in 2020, Republicans could capture that. And then you're actually, not that I'm advocating for it, but you wouldn't need a single Democrat vote to pass anything or block anything. But the Senate's a completely different matter. And remember, every single bill that comes through the House, you have to have a companion in the Senate, and they have to be exactly identical, or you got to re-vote on them. And that's what, at the end, when you're running out of time, that's what stalls legislation. But I would keep an eye on it, but until that bill gets filed and it gets a committee hearing, I would not lose sleep over some of those aggressive type of social bills. It's some of the, because there was a series of them, of bills that are being advanced by the far left in Florida. And with a conservative House, they're not going to move. They're never going to get to a vote. Right. If you're familiar with the bill that they're talking about, we have a religious exemption. Based on your religious preference, you don't want your children vaccinated, they don't have to be before they go to school, where everybody else, you typically got to have a set of shots before you go. And so in Florida, we have a religious exemption. There is a bill offered by Senator Lauren Book from South Florida I don't believe there's a House companion, but that won't be hard for her to get. She's running for governor already. But it's a bill to remove that religious exemption. And in the conservative House, I don't think it's going to move forward. I tell you, yeah, come, you can, myfloridahouse.gov is the website you can go to reach any state rep, and then you can find the Senate also. But you can make an appointment, and you can send us email. You can follow me on Facebook, but I don't debate on Facebook. Typically the knuckleheads come after me when I just put a statement out there. But you just come see us. Now, some reps have different hours, but I have I have two staff members. One that's a legislative aide that actually helps me with my schedule, but also helps get through that legislative process. And then I have a district secretary that manages my schedule and represents me when I can't attend a ribbon cutting or something along those lines. Today he went to visit a prison. I got caught in the traffic jam on the beach line and didn't get to make it. But just come see us. The other thing, I get the crazy emails. We had one on, the Democrats, not all Democrats, but it was mostly they requested a special session on gun control. And they had a list of issues that they wanted to debate and pass legislation on. Well, bill filing's already open. If you want to file that bill, go file that bill. You can do it right now. You don't need a special session to do that. And so I voted against it just because you would slow that down by having a special session. Remember, I talked about the professional staff that's up there. Let those people do their work. File the bill. Let them do their analysis and be able to give members that staff analysis. That's what we pay them for. And so I didn't think it made sense, but then somebody sent me an email and said, I live in your district. If you don't do this, I'm doing, just don't threaten me. Man, I spent 30 years in the Marine Corps. I don't, it's not effective. It's not effective.
One more question.
That makes a lot of sense because again, it was on the ballot it was against indoor vaping, the electric cigarette, and offshore drilling. We're in the same one. Now of course, the November election was odd because every 20 years we do the Constitutional Revision Commission, and they crammed all that stuff together. Do you know that Florida typically by far, we have the easiest, more methods to change our state constitution than any of the other states. That's why we keep tinkering with it so much, and I think that's very problematic when you start changing your foundational documents at the drop of a hat. But we did make some changes to make it more difficult because we have a lot of out-of-state hired guns to come in and try to change, because we all know it, we've all seen it from elections. As Florida goes, so goes the nation. And unfortunately, that our state constitution, whether it's a ban on assault rifles, $15 minimum wage, or legalization of marijuana, those issues are being pushed to be put on our ballot, not because John Morgan cares about $15 minimum wage. It's about turning out more. Who cares about that? It's low-income people. Okay, who cares about assault weapons? That's more of a woman's issue than men. Who cares about legalization of marijuana? Young people. They're trying to drive the voter segment that tend to vote Democrat to the polls in 2020 so they can win Florida, and if they win Florida, Democrats think they can take the White House. There is no path to victory without Florida. We all know it. We've seen it election over election. And that's why you get these crazy people from out of Florida, out of the state, that are tinkering with our Constitution. So I think a single subject makes a lot of sense, but boy, we don't want a ballot that's as long as your arm either. Because if you're on the tail end, because who knows who their soil and water commissioner is or their judges. People get to a certain point, they just quit voting. And I think that's a problem too. All right, I know I'm over my time, right?
Thank you, David.
Yeah. And I'll stay around if anybody has any other questions. Thank you very much.